Morning everyone, or good night, depending when you are. Hope you're all doing well. Today I'm going to carry on with ancient architecture and go into the civil engineering, the bit that I forgot on the book at the end of the last video, really. But before I do, I've got a few other tabs. But there's not too many tabs this time, so I'm not going to run out of time. But we're going to start with this particular drawing that I found anyway, because it really interested me. But this is a aerostatic machine. Experience, the aerostatic machine. It's like a boat with a helium balloon, and it's aerostatic, which means it will stay in the same position. So I found that really interesting. It could be that these were used when higher level drawings were taken of cities and stuff. These could have been also the same way that they made flying ships of the past, but this particular one obviously is aerostatic, so I'm guessing these sails are to I don't know, why would you need sails if it's going to stay in one place? But I found that really interesting, that drawing anyway, so I'll share that one along with you all. Yeah, all the links to all these are in the description box below. So here is a atlas, Catalan atlas from 1375. So this is, 650 years old or something. I won't spend too long on it, but I did want to share it because it's just quite magnificent. All the colour, and there's gold used in this. I do have another book somewhere that's literally the whole book is written in gold, but this particular one is gold. I know you can say it don't look like gold, but where it's PDF'd in certain angles, you can see the reflection of the light. And to go into this much detail in the 1300s, how much they really did believe in astronomy in a religious sense by the amount of information they've got here, Yeah, the reason I wanted to share it is because it's a map of the known world at that time, and also everything's a bit jumbled. You've got, you've got kings in gold and stuff, but you've got bits upside down. So the pages like this, the pages are really strange shaped as well. But you'll have some of the page the right way up and some of the page the wrong way up, and I don't really know why, unless they're trying to interpret the north and south and trying to, I don't know. But there was a page in here I've probably already gone past, which was Britain. You could see on the map that it was saying it was Britain, and I just couldn't zoom in quite enough to see the name, but it was definitely not called Britain. Is that it? Yeah, so what does that say? That's what Britain used to be called in the 1300s, apparently, if you can read that. But that's all upside down as well, so it's saying Britain's in the upside down area. But I'll share that anyway. Oops. Share that anyway, and next book was a book on drawing, which I found really interesting, and it shows how so much detail can be found when drawing these existing cities that were found and not built. But you'd have, I imagine, your little wire grid box with your numbers and letters on the sides. You can interpret which box you're going to be drawing next with your little magnifying glass, so you can get more detail in each box. I just found it really interesting, and this goes into how to draw in such great detail. Is that a laptop? Who knows, but it looks like one. But yeah, as you go down further into the book, you can see it even tells you how to draw body parts and bodies and for sculptures and stuff like that. Really interesting. So I encourage everyone to have a little gander at that as well. So let's try and go to a different page. So yeah, earlier on in the book, it's showing how to draw instruments as well. Yeah, I found that really interesting, and I thought I'd share it because although it's in French, it's got some pictures that depict what's going on. So here we're getting into some architecture. So this is the edifices of Amsterdam. From 1978. No, it's not. That's when it was uploaded. But there's no date there. So. But this is just full of findings in Amsterdam from the date on the book, which I can't seem to find. You can see even back in them days, the wealth was amazing. People were blinded. And yeah, unfortunately, it's all. Can I rotate it? Yes. So you've got some magnificent buildings. You can see these from like mid 1700s, I think. You can see how many people are around, and then you look at the pictures, the photos or whatever from the early 1800s, 50, 60 years later. There's no one there anymore. You can see all these buildings are quite magnificent. And I was watching a channel called Conspiracy RS yesterday, and going on about plaster of Paris and how it was just basically a render on the brick buildings that were built, and to a large extent, yeah, absolutely. And you know, when you look at brick buildings now, it almost looks like they're just part finished buildings compared to what was going on in the old times. But as you can see, people were good at either building or building new or rendering existing buildings. Quite likely what has happened is cities always seem to reappear on top of older cities. So the buildings we see now that look like magnificent architecture might have been ruins from the older time, and then you might find some of it is still of the older stone from the older time, and other times where the plaster of Paris and stuff has been created at a later date from the older time. Obviously their technology is less than the older time, so their materials don't last as long and they erode away, and then it reveals the red brick behind, you know. But really fascinating, loads of windmills and everything in Amsterdam, bridges, spires, a lot. So I thought I'd share that with you. You can see the star-foot wall around. Bear in mind the extent of that, because you know these are ships down here. So to build a city with a star-foot and civil engineering before you even build a city, it's just remarkable, and it would have taken so much more effort than the buildings itself, building the city itself. So this one is modern Rome, apparently from mid 1600s. And yeah, that kind of shocked me. I can't remember when guns were actually made, but they got bullets there in the mid 1600s and a star in the other end. And I wonder, is that representing explosions? So these are missiles rather than bullets? Is that what it's for? I'm not too sure. Or is this some sort of defence and this is some sort of attack? And I say that because if you look on these areas here, you know, this is higher than the defence is high up, and around the building they've got what might be the defences. So I don't know, maybe if you approach with metal or something, you know, some magic beam appears. Just making it up, I don't know. that I found quite magnificent, that the extent of this work in order to put the building on top, you know. Normally you would have piles underground and then you'd build this on the ground, but this is quite an effort to put it up. And I think it was Lee from Flat Earth British Sub the other day, he was talking about how these statues are larger than life size, all, you know, you can see their arms pointing out and stuff, how they were the architecture, like I said in my last video about the engines in the architecture and the horsepower. So basically UAPs found images where there's cogs on the structures, and the cogs make these move. So they'll rotate on their spot, or they might move their arms or whatever. And apparently the story was that they would point to different stars, and people that worship the stars would basically do their astrology or astronomy reports for the day, and you know, all that kind of mumbo jumbo. And I just found that really interesting, but clearly we don't have that kind of thing going on anymore. And I wonder, you know, you get all the gargoyles and that on buildings now, the dark kind of sculptures. Were they made to move at one point? Who knows? And this was quite magnificent as well, because once again, you've got such a extensive wall to create the ground level for such an extensive building. You know, structural designs must have been immense. But even down here, you've got like I don't know, 2 or 3 story buildings here. Sorry, 4 story buildings. And the top level in the roof, you might be able to walk through an entrance into the ground level of that. Just seems really, really quite extensive compared to what we would do now in a modern day development. I suppose what we'd do is we'd have a retaining wall here, so the ground level can stay high there and low there, and you would actually build this away from the retaining wall. And yeah, it just seems just so much. And I can only imagine this would have possibly been from an older time, and that this was built on at a later date, and then this was probably the most recent building out of all of that. But I am only speculating, I don't know. Yeah, just really fantastic stuff, and they're all named and everything. So these are places that were probably wiped out in World War I and II, or some of them might even exist still. You get magnificent buildings like that with 2 fountains out the front. It's just you get really magnificent designs as well on some of them. So yeah, there's another book I wanted to share. Look at that. Got all the stairs. You come up the stairs to here, then you come up the stairs to there, into a Starfort building, and you know, you can go, probably come up to this floor or that floor to there, and then you come out into the gardens, and then you've got some more steps up to another bit. Vedvata Celebra Palazzo. So yep, there's another one for you. Just loads and loads of buildings in here, and the work put into them is magnificent. Just so much more than what we would do now. So I won't go through every page of that, but as you can see, I'll just scroll to the end. As you can see, there's a lot of stuff, a lot of different buildings that used to exist in here. La Galerie, Agréable du Monde. Yeah, a few months back when I was going through my folder, I saw that I had about 10 that had that as the title, and because the titles, when they get too long, it will just show the first bit and then ... I had about 10 files that had La Galerie, Agréable du Monde ... And I thought, oh, I've got duplicates, I might as well delete some of these. So I deleted loads of them, and then realised I had a couple left that they were actually all different, and now I'm struggling to find them all again. But these are really quite good books from 1729 that depict what was around in them times. But there's a city of Nineveh, which was Nimrod was the builder of it, I think. Is this Noah's Ark, I think? Yeah, massive. Considering Noah was a giant compared to us today. That seemed fitting. It just seemed massive, absolutely massive. But obviously, this is just a drawing. And here depicts the rooms of what animals were going into. What room? Like the plans of the ark, which, I mean, considering most information gets eradicated over time and warped, to have this kind of level of information either says that this isn't true and it's just someone's supposed idea of what happened, or the flood was closer. Here you can see the kinds of tools they were using. So yeah, there's just loads of stuff in here. Even in them times, if it were true, if these depictions were accurate, then they had printed coins all along. Just magnificent, really. There's Nineveh again in Assyria. The massive temple in the middle. Excuse me. Babylon. Is that supposed to be Nineveh again? No, this is Babylon. So that's supposedly depicting the Tower of Babel, but you can see it's pretty much the same as Nineveh. So Nimrod liked just building these square cities, and he was the grandson of Noah. So these cities were built a century or two after the flood. And you'd think that it would have been, being old times, that they would have done some magnificent Star Fort type stuff. But it doesn't appear so. I'm looking in people everywhere. And yeah, there is talk that Tower of Babel wasn't actually a building, but it was a manner in which to reach the stars. Could have been a technology or something, I do not know. Maybe it was a building, I just don't know. Yeah, and this book now goes into, I don't know, but I think people trying to concoct the idea of a globe. And then you've got things like this which make no sense. You've got the globe, you've got forces of wind coming in from either side and it's causing cracks on the globe. Then you've got the inner mantle and all that lie. But you can see there they've got the globe, and is this them trying to figure out how to create a mass deception? I don't know. But look at that. Was this how they depict it? You know how nowadays they're trying to make us believe that the globe's pear-shaped. The globe. In fact, I'm still even using that word, it's crazy. But in these days, maybe this is how they depicted it, that the oceans were rocky and different levels everywhere, and it was under that particular type of shape. And the detail of the moon as well. Look at the size of their telescope. Absolutely massive. But the moon seems, I think that is the same angle, rotation and shape now as it was then. But I mean, if I'm wrong, let me know. And these are what people saw 300 years ago when they looked at particular stars. So this is what people saw in Saturn and Jupiter, Mars, Saturn. So either extent of somewhat or other. There's the third one of Saturn. So I guess as it's rotating, like that way rather than that way. It's going up and over according to these drawings, and also how they figured out how to get light onto an image. But yeah, this is all I can imagine this to be. I really don't know, is them trying to depict the globe and how it would break into two somehow, or how it got broken in the past. I don't know. So there's Baghdad from old times, with loads of round buildings, quite an extensive wall around with a moat, and then you've got the river behind, with ships and a bridge. Lots of people going to war a few hundred years ago there. I suppose there's lots of people going to war every century, everywhere. Excuse me. And you've got all these like castles or whatever plotted along the river, all along the sides. So I suppose, yeah, maybe there wasn't such a need for roads in the olden times. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm pretty sure there were loads of roads, but a lot of the stuff is near water, so maybe in olden times shipping around the heavy stone and that was just done by water. Because the heavier the stone, in nowadays, the heavier the stuff you're shipping around, the more you spend on fuel. And yeah, if you go on a boat, you could potentially just, it's not about the weight really. You know, the wind can just float you along the top. So what is that on the roof there? So yeah, there's another book, excuse me, that I'll share with you guys. Before I get onto that, I'll just share this one quickly. This is, I don't know what the heck's going on here. I don't know if this is how people used to dress in the 1750s or if it was just some crazy person's idea of the future. But look at what people are wearing. Is this business in the old days? You know, now we have business buildings that you pay business rates on, and you open up your shop. In these times, were people just walking around with a table attached to their hip, and their business was on their table? Who knows? That is just absolutely insane, if you ask me. Butcher walk around with raw meat on him. Just really crazy stuff, and I can't imagine anyone would wear this. It just looks like fancy garbage. Nothing like reality of the clothes that we would wear today. Just truly nuts. So yeah, anyway, getting back onto the main point. So as you can see here, this is just a bridge, and what's above it, I don't know. These secrets as to how it was built, the tools that we use to lift certain stones, and the ways that they would lift them, I don't know. But looking at the bridge underneath, so you can see that you've got your bridge, and it's somehow depicting different levels as you go through, whether it's at different times or what, I don't know. You can see people on top, so you can see that the stones used are big, but you can also see that underneath the water the structure goes on, and it goes on and on and on. Imagine that's the size of a person, and the bridge that you see, if the water nowadays is say up here, so imagine this is the London Bridge or whatever, you would see these bits sticking out and the water level being somewhere around here, and then you see the final bits of the structure at the top. What's underneath is 4 times, 5 times more than what you see above, and that is a lot. You can see here you've got all these piles, and they're just literally squashed next to each other the whole extent. And then you've got huge bricks on top, some at different angles as well for the structural purposes of strength and integrity. But that's my point. And then you get to other things. So this is a building that I think I've seen before. This is a round building in drawing, not in photo, in some country. But look at the groundworks involved in order to have that building there. You know, it's more brick in the groundworks than you'd need. Well, you could probably build the above ground stuff, I don't know, 3 or 4 times with the material you've got underground. Then you've got all these piles, once again, all squashed next to each other. Like I was saying in my last video, like in Ireland, Giant's Causeway, where you've got them hexagonal stones on the ground, all next to each other. And I was trying to say that they're probably building materials of old times. And that's what I'm trying to say, is another bridge here. And you've got at the bottom, you've got the piles, just all squashed next to each other. And then you've got the stone on top, obviously going at different angles for structural integrity purposes. But it's just the amount of work involved for just this bridge even is just immense. So when you consider, alright, so here's another building, here's stones with bits missing, so the tools that I showed before could be used to lift these stones. But look at the extent of the groundworks to hold this building in place. You know, you've got your piles at the bottom there, you've just got layer after layer after layer of bricks going off in different angles everywhere, just doing so much stuff. And then you've got your underground tunnels for it as well. So when you've got high walls, buttress walls, it's just showing how you'd have some parts of it sticking out further than others and other parts inside, so you know, you're creating strengths in some places and others, like this here. And this is that round building we was just looking at, and this is a depiction of the stuff that was revealed underneath it. And you can see people there, stones being chest high, really big stones. And then you can see here the piles at the bottom, which I would imagine are them hexagonal stones like you see in Giant's Causeway. But all this is done just so you can have that round building on top at ground level. Or maybe when this was done, ground level was down here, and these extensively massive buildings were built up this high with steps to them. I don't know, who knows, but they're probably built for giants anyway, so yeah. So this is showing the elevation and plan of one of the feet in the river of a bridge, like these parts. And you can see if the part above water is, if the water level's somewhere around here, sorry, there it is there, isn't it? So the water level's here. What's underneath the water, in order to hold this, what would be a magnificent bridge to everyone watching it, would be so much more than what is actually there. So this is nothing. This bit that's revealed above the water is nothing to what's underneath it. And here you can see how I think they locked stones in together with metal. I don't think that depicts it very well. Here's just like a little island between two other terrains, and just look at the buildings that are designed on this little island. Incredible. You see older times, bigger stone, newer times, smaller stone, even newer times, rubble. You've got the serpent twisting around. So it's just some incredible stuff in here going on about domes, and they're even shown here deterioration in the 1700s. So clearly they haven't built, they haven't built that, but rather discovered it. Here's another bridge. You can see how much work has gone into the undersides. In order to have a trail of water and a bridge over it. So yeah, this book just has so much in it. It's just very revealing. Well, it doesn't show you exactly how they did it, because quite clearly they didn't build it, and it was found. Here you can see how they've got their groundworks at diagonal levels, then all the piles underneath it again. You can see it's mud flooded as well, so this would have been the ground level when this structure was built, potentially, or if their windows could have been even lower, and this would have all been visible. You can see the man on the ground, but the ground level was probably here once upon a time. So yes, the level of work that went into pre-construction was so much more than nowadays. Nowadays, the work involved in creating a development is ultimate bullshit, because it's all paperwork, permissions and stuff like that, and to me that just seems ridiculous. I mean, we didn't live in a slave system, and people got to actually own the land they lived on. They could build what they felt was suitable, and yeah, albeit if they wanted to sell it and it was dangerous, you would get a surveyor in to put a true value on it. But we're held by such rules, even with our cars nowadays, that you can't go without an MOT and insurance. At the end of the day, if I own that property and it's broken, it's my choice. And yeah, I know people say that, yeah, it's in case you crash into someone else, you've got to be able to cover the price for them. But it's just, to me, it's just an all backwards robbing system that could be done in a much better way. So here, what I was saying, once again, the piles, huge stones at chest height, the groundwork's just really magnificent and way beyond what people of this size could build. Pardon me. And the holes in the stones show that even the giants, the giants were lifting them like that, potentially using the same technology as they were in the 1700s. Yes, this now goes into basically the designs of columns and how you can get the lengths, the angles, the curves and everything. So it's not hard to believe that in these days it was possible for the people around to reverse engineer, to an extent anyway. You know, maybe the pre-flood beautiful architecture was done differently, and post-flood they didn't maybe have quite the same technology, so they had to create different ways to mimic things of older times. But it all makes sense now. Like in my last video, I showed shared a book where it was showing the designs of window frames and door frames. Now, if all the plaster of Paris stuff is the way it was, which seems fair enough, yeah, they wouldn't really need to do anything if all the old brick buildings were there already. What they'd have to do is make designs for covering faces of the buildings. I found this quite interesting as well. It's that bricks were made like Lego blocks, so you could load them up. I imagine these are steps for a concert, Colosseum, potentially seating steps. And then here you've got plans and designs for a building with all the groundworks there. You can see that here they don't really seem that extent compared to the other ones, but above ground these pillars are massive compared to the people. So yeah, this book is such a large book. It's got so much information in it. It shows so many different ways of layering tiles, bricks. It shows mud flood all the time. Definitely a book worth looking into for everyone. You can see the extent of the designs for everything. And that's why I was trying to say in the last video also that maybe, you know, each building wasn't straight up designed brand new, but someone designed a book of, say, window or door frame designs, and then whoever commandeered that building would also own a book, and they would just pick and choose out of the book which designs they want, and then hire someone to construct it in that manner. I don't know. So yeah, there you go. There's where I get the hexagonal ground stuff from. But this, as you can see, seems to be horizontal rather than vertical in this construction anyway. Just really magnificent stuff, really. So I wanted to share that, and I know I did share this book in the last one, but I'm going to share it again. But I wanted to get this stuff out to show the true extent of the engineering involved and how much work must have been involved in getting this up. So yeah, so many more pages to go through, and I've only got about three minutes till the video cuts out. But I mean, if there's lots of these horizontal shaped, dodgy shaped stones that all fit like that, I still hold on to the idea that in olden times sound was used, not for just for cutting, but for shaping as well. So if you used to put the right frequency on stone, it could just turn to not necessarily liquid, but a liquid state. So it could change its shape and form. And then when you take the frequencies off, it hardens in the form it's at. So yeah, all these proven findings of remains show that they're not new designs. Fasces. Really interesting stuff, really magnificent. So yeah, I'll share this book as well, so you can all go through it and see how people used to perceive their designs in the past and compare them to today and see how much vastly different they are. And yeah, if you've got any comments or anything like that, please do leave them and download all these, and I'll speak with you all soon. Take care and God bless.